March 6, 1944, 5:30 in the morning. RAF Station, Thorpe Abbotts, Norfolk, England. A thin layer of frost covers the concrete perimeter track as ground crews move under portable lamps. The engines of a Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress sit silent for the moment, their aluminum skins pale in the dim pre-dawn light. Crew chiefs walk beneath the wings with flashlights, checking hydraulic lines and bomb shackles. In Dispersal Bay Charlie 7 stands B-17G serial number 42-40036, assigned to the 394th Bombardment Squadron of the 100th Bombardment Group. Inside the operations building, the aircrew gather around a large map of Central Europe. At exactly 5:45 in the morning, Colonel Harold J. Bowman, commanding officer of the 100th Bombardment Group, pulls a cloth away from the red thread that stretches deep into Germany. The line ends over Berlin. For several seconds, the room is silent. Berlin is the most heavily defended target in the Third Reich. The route board lists the operational scale. More than 2,000 Allied aircraft will enter German airspace today. The main striking force consists of approximately 730 American heavy bombers from the 1st Bombardment Division, 2nd Bombardment Division, and 3rd Bombardment Division of the 8th Air Force. The escort force includes North American P-51 Mustang, Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, and Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighters. In addition, the Royal Air Force will launch diversionary bomber streams over northern Germany. The purpose is simple: force the German Luftwaffe fighter defense system to divide its response. The operational objective is not the destruction of one building or one factory. The target list for Berlin includes ball bearing works, aircraft component factories, railway marshalling yards, and electrical power facilities supporting the German war economy. For the Allied command structure, the strategic logic is clear. Every bomb dropped on Berlin forces the German Air Force to defend its capital. Every interception burns fuel. Every lost German fighter reduces the ability of Germany to resist the upcoming Allied invasion of Western Europe. At 6:10 in the morning, crews return to their aircraft. Ground crews remove engine covers. Bomb carts roll slowly across the concrete. Each B-17 receives a standard bomb load for the mission profile. Inside the bomb bay of aircraft 42-40036, armorers secure 10 500-pound general-purpose bombs, each fitted with delayed action fuses. Total payload weight is 5,000 pounds. The bomber carries 13 Browning 50 caliber machine guns, 2 in the nose turret, 2 in the dorsal turret, 2 in the ball turret beneath the fuselage, 2 waist guns on each side, 2 in the tail position, 1 flexible gun in the radio compartment. These guns are the last line of defense once German fighters arrive. At 6:45 in the morning, the first engine begins to turn. The Wright Cyclone R 1820 radial engine coughs once, then settles into a steady rumble. One by one, the other 3 engines ignite. Across eastern England, the same sound begins to build. Hundreds of engines, thousands of pistons, a mechanical thunder that rolls across farmland and coastal marsh. By 7:15 in the morning, the first B-17 begins to taxi. The bomber moves slowly toward the runway threshold. Takeoff weight exceeds 65,000 pounds. Each aircraft must use nearly the entire length of the runway. At 7:23 in the morning, the lead aircraft of the 351st Bombardment Group lifts off into the pale morning sky. Within minutes, the sky above Norfolk begins to fill with bombers climbing through thin cloud layers. Formation assembly takes nearly an hour. The aircraft must climb to 25,000 feet while forming the defensive combat box formation. 3 squadrons form a group, 3 groups form a combat wing. Multiple wings will combine into the massive bomber stream heading toward Berlin. From the ground, it appears almost unreal. Hundreds of aircraft circling slowly as they assemble, but the danger waits far ahead. Germany has spent years building the Kammhuber defensive system. Radar stations along the coast, heavy anti-aircraft artillery batteries, night fighter control centers converted for daylight interception. And most dangerous of all, the Jagdgeschwader fighter wings of the Luftwaffe. Units such as Jagdgeschwader 11, Jagdgeschwader 3, and Jagdgeschwader 26 have been placed on high alert. Their aircraft include the Messerschmitt Bf-109G and the heavily armed Focke Wulf FW-190A. Many carry 30mm Mk108 cannons, designed specifically to destroy heavy bombers. German radar has already detected the rising formations over England. By 8:30 in the morning, the scale of the attack becomes clear. This is not a small raid. This is one of the largest daylight bombing operations yet attempted over Berlin. In the operations bunker outside the city, Luftwaffe controllers begin scrambling interceptors. Fuel trucks race across German airfields. Pilots run toward their aircraft. And far above the North Sea, the bomber stream stretches across the horizon, more than 100 miles long, 2,000 aircraft moving toward one city. But a critical problem is about to emerge. The American escort fighters do not yet have enough range to remain with the bombers for the entire mission. And the moment those fighters turn back toward England, the bomber stream will be alone, directly over the most heavily defended airspace in Europe. March 6, 1944. 9:42 in the morning, 25,000 feet above the North Sea. The bomber stream has fully assembled. From horizon to horizon, B-17 Flying Fortress and B-24 Liberator bombers hold their tight geometric formations. Sunlight reflects off thousands of square feet of aluminum skin. The formation now stretches across more than 100 miles of sky. At the head of the attack are units of the 1st Bombardment Division, primarily equipped with B-17 aircraft. Behind them, the 2nd Bombardment Division follows with B-24 Liberators. The 3rd Bombardment Division forms the trailing element. Each formation flies within a carefully calculated defensive geometry. The combat box formation allows overlapping fields of fire from the 50 caliber machine guns. Any German fighter approaching must face concentrated defensive fire from multiple aircraft at once, but this defensive system only works if formation discipline holds. One bomber drifting out of position becomes a target, and the Luftwaffe knows it. At 10:12 in the morning, the bomber stream crosses the Dutch coastline near Vlieland Island. German radar stations along the coast immediately relay tracking information through the Luftwaffe command network. Within minutes, interception orders move across northern Germany. At Fliegerhorst Wunstorf, pilots of Jagdgeschwader 11 begin their scramble. The Messerschmitt BF. 109 G6 fighters roar down the runway, climbing rapidly toward the bomber altitude. Further south at Achmer Airfield, Focke Wulf FW 190, a 6 fighters of Jagdgeschwader. 26 prepare for a head-on interception. The Luftwaffe strategy is precise, head-on attacks against the bomber formations. The approach speed during these passes exceeds 600 miles per hour combined closure speed. At that velocity, the firing window lasts less than 2 seconds, but the German fighters carry a devastating weapon, the Mk-108 30mm cannon. One shell exploding inside a bomber fuselage can cripple the aircraft instantly. At 10:31 in the morning, the first interceptors appear. Tiny black shapes against the pale winter sky. Inside the lead bomber formations, gunners begin calling out positions. Fighters 12 o'clock high. Multiple bandits approaching. The first German fighters dive directly into the front of the formation. The tactic is brutal but effective. By attacking from the front, German pilots minimize exposure to the majority of defensive guns. Only the nose turret and top turret can fire during the initial seconds. The sky erupts with crossing streams of tracer fire. Inside the nose compartment of one B-17, Second Lieutenant Robert K. Morgan, aircraft commander of Memphis Belle, watches the first formation break apart under the attack. A B-17 in the lead squadron takes a direct hit in the cockpit. The aircraft drops suddenly out of formation. The combat box tightens immediately. Maintaining formation is the only protection the bombers have. At 10:45 in the morning, the German defenses escalate. Heavy flak 36 88mm anti-aircraft guns open fire from positions around Hanover. Black bursts of flak fill the sky at bomber altitude. Each shell explodes into hundreds of steel fragments. The gunners do not aim directly at aircraft. Instead, they fire timed barrages into predicted flight paths. Flying through the bursts becomes unavoidable. Inside the bomber formations, crews begin reporting damage. Hydraulic lines cut, oxygen systems punctured, navigation instruments shattered. One B-24 from the 445th Bombardment Group loses 2 engines after a direct flak burst. The pilot attempts to maintain altitude, but within minutes, the aircraft begins a slow descending turn. Without full engine power, the bomber cannot stay with the formation, and every German fighter pilot watches for exactly this moment. At 11:12 in the morning, the first escort fighters begin turning back toward England. Many of the P-47 Thunderbolts have reached the limits of their fuel range. The new P-51 Mustang, with its extended fuel tanks, continues forward. But there are not enough Mustangs yet to cover the entire bomber stream. For nearly 40 minutes, the bombers will fly over Germany with limited escort protection. This is the most dangerous phase of the mission. German fighter units now begin coordinated mass attacks. Aircraft from Jagdgeschwader 3, Jagdgeschwader 11, and Jagdgeschwader 54 converge on the bomber stream. Some fighters carry Werfer Granate 21 rockets, fired from beneath the wings. These rockets detonate within the bomber formations, forcing the bombers to break formation. Breaking formation exposes individual aircraft. At 11:35 in the morning, the bomber stream approaches Berlin air defense sectors. Below them lies the most heavily fortified city in Germany. Hundreds of anti-aircraft guns surround the capital. Radar-controlled searchlights stand ready. And Luftwaffe fighter controllers are now directing interceptors directly into the heart of the bomber stream. The bombers are still 30 miles from their target, but the worst defensive zone has only just begun, and the bomb bay doors are about to open over Berlin itself. March 6, 1944, 12:02 in the afternoon. 26,000 feet above Berlin. The first wave of the 1st Bombardment Division reaches the initial point of the bombing run. Inside the lead aircraft, the bombardier engages the Norden bombsight. From this moment forward, the aircraft must fly a perfectly straight course. Any sudden maneuver would destroy the accuracy of the bombing calculation. The lead bombardier now controls the bomber through the autopilot connection. Behind him, hundreds of aircraft lock into the same heading. The formation stabilizes. Below them spreads the German capital. Railway yards stretch across the city like steel veins. Factories producing aircraft components operate near the Siemens industrial district. Electrical generating plants feed power into the Berlin rail network and communications grid. These are the targets. The operational objective of the mission is precise. Destroy the industrial systems that allowed Germany to manufacture aircraft, transport troops, and maintain military logistics. For Allied planners in England, the bombing campaign against Berlin carries a deeper strategic purpose. Every major daylight attack forces the German Luftwaffe Fighter Command to commit its interceptor forces. Each lost German aircraft reduces the defensive strength available when the Allies launch their invasion of Western Europe. In other words, the bombers over Berlin are not only attacking factories, they are deliberately forcing a battle in the sky. At 12:07 in the afternoon, the first flak batteries open fire. Berlin contains more anti-aircraft guns than any city in Germany. Around the capital stand more than 1,000 heavy flak guns, many mounted in massive concrete towers known as flak-term defense structures. These towers mount 128mm flak 40 anti-aircraft guns, among the most powerful weapons of their kind. The shells explode at bomber altitude with violent precision. Black bursts surround the formation. Inside the cockpit of B-17 42-40036, the aircraft commander feels the bomber shudder as fragments strike the fuselage. The interphone crackles with damage reports. Waist gunner reports hydraulic fluid leaking near the starboard wing. The ball turret gunner reports fragments striking the turret armor. But the formation continues forward. Breaking away now would expose the aircraft to fighters and flak simultaneously. At 12:11 in the afternoon, the lead bombardier calls the command. Bomb bay doors open. Across hundreds of aircraft, hydraulic systems swing open the long metal doors beneath the fuselage. Cold air floods the bomb bays. Rows of 500-pound bombs hang in metal racks. The final seconds of the bombing run begin. The bombers must hold their course for nearly 60 seconds. In combat conditions, 60 seconds feels very long. German fighter units are still attacking the formation. Pilots of Focke Wulf FWW 190. 8 fighters dive from above the bomber stream. Some fighters attempt one final head-on attack before the bombs fall. Inside the formation, defensive gunners fire continuously. The overlapping fields of fire create a lattice of tracer lines across the sky. At 12:12 in the afternoon, the lead bombardier presses the release switch. The first bombs fall. One by one, thousands of bombs drop from the formation. From above, the bombs appear almost slow as they separate from the aircraft. Within seconds, they accelerate toward the industrial districts below. Across the formation, bomb racks empty in sequence. More than 1,500 tons of bombs fall toward Berlin during this phase of the mission. Rail yards, factory complexes, and power stations become the impact zone. Columns of smoke begin rising almost immediately. But the mission is not over. After the bomb release, the bomber formations must still fly hundreds of miles back to England, and the Luftwaffe is not finished. At 12:23 in the afternoon, German fighters regroup for pursuit attacks as the bombers turn west. The formations are now lighter, but many aircraft are damaged. Engines burn oil. Fuel tanks leak. Navigation instruments have been destroyed in several lead aircraft. Some bombers begin losing altitude. These damaged aircraft become targets during the long journey home. Escort fighters from the P-51 Mustang groups begin reconnecting with their returning formations near the German border. But the cost of the mission is already visible. Several bombers trail behind the formation, struggling to maintain speed. Each one carries a crew of 10 men. Every decision made during the return flight now determines whether those crews will reach England. By 3:45 in the afternoon, the surviving bombers begin landing back across eastern England. Ground crews count the returning aircraft. The numbers reveal the scale of the battle. Dozens of bombers are missing. Many more are damaged. Yet the strategic impact is undeniable. The Luftwaffe has committed massive numbers of fighters to defend Berlin. Losses among experienced German pilots continue to rise. Factories in the capital have been disrupted. Rail traffic through Berlin is slowed. Most importantly, German fighter defenses are now forced into constant engagement with the Allied bomber force. Every interception drains aircraft, fuel, and trained pilots, and every loss weakens the German ability to resist the invasion that will arrive only 3 months later on the beaches of Normandy. The bombing campaign over Germany has become a war of industrial endurance. And on this day, more than 2,000 Allied aircraft crossed the sky above one German city to prove a single strategic truth. The industrial power of the United States and its allies could reach the heart of the Third Reich whenever it chose,